The man who never died, the incredible story of Enoch. Imagine living in a world where violence had become normal, corruption spread like wildfire, and almost everyone had turned away from God. It was a dark age, filled with fear and uncertainty. Yet among millions of people, one man chose a different path. His name was Enoch. His life was so extraordinary that the Bible dedicates only a few verses to him, but those verses reveal one of the greatest mysteries in all of Scripture. Who was this man? Why did God take him away without experiencing death? And what can his incredible story teach us today? Enoch was born several generations after Adam, during a time when humanity was rapidly multiplying across the earth. According to the book of Genesis, people lived for hundreds of years. Civilizations were growing, knowledge was increasing, but so was evil. Pride, greed, violence, and rebellion against God were becoming the defining characteristics of mankind. Unlike most people of his generation, Enoch chose a different way of life. Genesis tells us something astonishing. Instead of simply saying that Enoch lived for hundreds of years, it repeats a unique phrase: Enoch walked with God. This expression appears only a handful of times in the Bible, making it incredibly significant. Walking with God wasn't merely about believing in Him. It described a daily relationship built on trust, obedience, and constant fellowship. While the world drifted further into darkness, Enoch grew closer to the Creator. The Bible tells us that Enoch became the father of Methuselah, the man famous for living longer than anyone else in Scripture. But after Methuselah was born, something changed dramatically in Enoch's life. For the next 300 years, he walked faithfully with God. Imagine what that means. Every morning, every decision, every challenge, every joy, Enoch chose to live in God's presence. His neighbors likely thought he was strange. His message probably made people uncomfortable. But he never compromised. The New Testament reveals something else about Enoch that Genesis doesn't fully explain. The book of Hebrews tells us that Enoch pleased God through his faith. Without faith, it says, it is impossible to please Him. Enoch didn't simply believe that God existed. He trusted Him completely. Even more fascinating, the book of Jude records a prophecy spoken by Enoch centuries before the Great Flood. Enoch warned that the Lord would come with countless holy ones to judge the ungodly for their wickedness and rebellion. Think about that for a moment. Long before Noah built the ark, long before the flood covered the earth, Enoch was already warning humanity that judgment was coming. Very few listened. History would prove him right. As corruption spread throughout the earth, God's patience was reaching its limit. The violence of mankind had become unbearable. Every intention of the human heart was increasingly evil. Judgment was approaching. But before that judgment arrived, something unbelievable happened. Genesis simply says, Enoch walked faithfully with God, then he was no more, because God took him. No illness. No funeral. No burial. No grave. One moment, Enoch was walking with God. The next moment, he was with God forever. Hebrews explains this miracle even more clearly. It says Enoch was taken away so that he did not experience death. People searched for him, but they could not find him. Imagine the shock among his family, his friends, his neighbors. A man had disappeared without a trace. Not because he was lost, not because he died, but because God Himself had taken him. This makes Enoch one of only 2 people in the Bible who were taken into heaven without dying, the other being the prophet Elijah many centuries later. Why did God do this? The Bible never gives a complete explanation, but it does leave us with powerful clues. Enoch's life became a testimony that faith is rewarded, that intimacy with God is possible, and that death is not the final word for those who belong to Him. Many Bible scholars also notice another remarkable detail. Enoch was taken before the flood. Noah went through the flood. This sequence has led some Christians to see Enoch as a symbolic picture of God's people being taken before a future time of judgment, although this is an interpretation rather than an explicit biblical teaching. Whether or not one accepts that view, one truth remains undeniable. Enoch's life demonstrates that God sees those who remain faithful, even when the entire world chooses another path. His story is surprisingly relevant today. Modern society often celebrates power, wealth, and popularity above character. Many people measure success by followers, possessions, or influence. Yet Enoch possessed none of those things that Scripture records. Instead, the greatest compliment ever given to him was incredibly simple. He walked with God. Think about it. The Bible tells us almost nothing about Enoch's career. Nothing about his wealth. Nothing about his achievements. But it tells us exactly what mattered most. His relationship with God. Thousands of years have passed since Enoch disappeared from the earth. Empires have risen and fallen. Kings have come and gone. Entire civilizations have vanished into history. Yet the name of Enoch continues to inspire millions because his greatest accomplishment was not building a kingdom on earth. It was knowing the King of Heaven. Perhaps that's why his story remains one of the greatest mysteries in the Bible. Not because we don't know where he went. Scripture tells us God took him. The real mystery is whether we are willing to walk with God as faithfully as Enoch did in a world that often walks in the opposite direction. One day, every human life will come to an end. Every achievement will fade. Every earthly possession will be left behind. The question that Enoch's story asks each of us is both simple and profound. What path are we walking today? Because in the end, the most extraordinary life may not be the one filled with fame or success. It may simply be the life that walks faithfully with God, one step at a time. And perhaps that is why, after thousands of years, the man who never died still has something to teach the entire world.